This episode of Powerhouse is brought to you today by Poly.
We don't want to be sort of a branded house. We want to be a house of brands. And I think that will translate into an experience strategy that leverages the best of what we have.
Welcome to Powerhouse, where we interview the biggest names in housing and ask them about their strategy for growth. I'm Diego Sanchez, president of HousingWire, and my guests today are special ones. Varun Krishna, CEO of Rocket, and Jay Bray, CEO of Mr. Cooper. Varun and Jay, it's so great to have you back on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Diego. Good to be here.
Yeah, very good.
So, Varun, the last time we spoke, it was about 5 or 6 months ago, and it was right before you unveiled Own the Dream at the Super Bowl, which was an incredible integration. Do you see Own the Dream as an evolution or a revolution for Rocket marketing?
Well, thank you. First off, I got to ask, I heard that you and Clayton have a last longer bet on ticket sales for the gathering. How are we doing on that?
It's you can see that the beard's pretty full at this point. So we just passed ticket number 700 on our way to shaving at 800. So
I love it.
We're doing really well, and the beard's pretty itchy. So I'm excited to shave it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. To your question around Own the Dream, I'd start by just saying, look, I think life is just too short for evolution, right? So this is definitely about revolution. And I think that Own the Dream is really one part of a larger revolution of Rocket marketing. And, hats off to Jonathan Mildenhall, our CMO, because I think since he joined the company, he has really just seen the potential of what our brand and our go-to-market strategy can become. And I think that led to an overhaul of our entire brand. You've probably seen, we've got a new look and feel, we've got new logos, new colors, but we have also kind of a new visual design. And I would say we have a new emotion. We have more soul, we have more inclusivity. And the way that Rocket shows up is just different, right? It's more emotional, it's more anthemic. And we don't use, shorter term emotions like humor to convey who we are and what we mean. We want to be a serious brand that plays on a serious stage, and that's homeownership. And so the core creative idea, I think, is one part of a revolution. It's what we call Own the Dream. It's very similar to, Think Different from Apple, or Just Do It from Nike, or Open Happiness from Coke, or Belong Anywhere from Airbnb. And I think it's a precipice of what great marketing really is. And so definitely more, on the revolution side of the spectrum, and just sort of one part of the bigger picture.
Yeah, it was really impressive. And you followed up on Own the Dream with really dramatic, industry-defining acquisitions that we're going to talk a lot about today. First Redfin and then Mr. Cooper. Why have you gone all in on M&A so close to this revolution in marketing?
They're just two parts of the same story at the end of the day. You start by figuring out what your strategy is, and then you figure out the best way to execute on that strategy to have the maximum impact. And I think these are two connected parts of the same puzzle, which is really in service to our strategy, which is about growth. Way back in September, we declared our growth strategy to grow market share profitably. We want to double our purchase market share from 4 to 8%, and increase our refinance market share from 12 to 20%. And I think that when you get to the size and scale of companies like Rocket, Mr. Cooper, Redfin, it's very natural that you're going to think about inorganic levers to achieve a step function change in growth, just because you are already at a certain level of scale. But at the end of the day, I think what's exciting to me is that inorganic becomes one of the best ways to achieve your growth ambitions. And it's something that we think is great for the industry and great for Rocket. It allows us to build a more interconnected experience, and connect 3 broken parts of a funnel and to create a super funnel. It creates a better, more balanced company that can operate in different types of market and rate environments and be able to grow. It provides data and distribution to a homeownership platform, whether that's, millions of consumers at the top of the funnel, tens of thousands of mortgage brokers, real estate agents, and then all of the data that allows you to build an AI platform. And then all of this is simply just to say that it allows us to build a more killer experience for the client, right? Where we can just remove friction, enable their success, enable more people to get into homes in a sustainable way. And so all of this is just in service to our strategy, which is in service to growth.
Yeah, I mean, it felt to me like you were moving beyond just mortgage, Rocket as a mortgage company and a servicing business, and really thinking about the full cycle of home ownership. And that's why it's so fascinating to me. I assume that was intentional, that you're really thinking about that full life cycle as opposed to being siloed in mortgage.
Absolutely. I think I get asked this question a lot, which is, are you a mortgage company or a technology company? And what's interesting to me is these are like, what's and how's, but the question is really about a why. And the why is home ownership. And home ownership starts with searching for a home, getting financed, being able to be in a home in a safe and sustainable way. And they're all interconnected, and I think that these parts of the ecosystem have existed in sort of this disparate way. And we had been experimenting around it with different things on the Rocket side. And, as I got to know the industry ramping up into the role, a part of my experience was meeting amazing leaders like Jay and learning about their business and realizing that we shared a vision on the future of homeownership, and then just realizing how connected and complementary our strategies and our execution could be, to achieve a greater good.
So bringing in Jay, it's great to talk to you again. Why did you view Rocket as a good home for the Mr. Cooper business?
Well, believe it or not, Diego, I just celebrated my 25th year anniversary at the company. And as you know, we've acquired a number of companies over the years, a number of portfolios. And I really fundamentally think the key to any of those to successful acquisitions and integrations is all about the culture. And when I first met Varun, he and I, we immediately hit it off. And then when I spent more time with Dan and the other Rocket executives, it was just clear to me that the culture fit was perfect. They cared deeply about their team members. They cared deeply about their clients. And when you look at our values, they just overlap and intertwine. And so I felt like it was a perfect fit for the company. And also, as Varun said, very like-minded in where we want to take the company, the journey that we're on together. And I think, that was the primary reasons.
I'm thinking back to my conversation with you, Varun, and I feel like I got a little bit of a hint. You mentioned that you and Jay had been texting recently, and I'm sure you text for any number of reasons, but that was a pretty interesting hint there. So Jay, the plan is, if the deal is approved, you are going to lead Rocket Mortgage, and you've built an incredible servicing business that we've talked all about on a previous Powerhouse episode. Why do you think it makes sense for you to lead a multi-channel lender and servicer?
Well, if I think about my career, I've done just about everything in the mortgage business. So, we've always been in the origination business, and, spent a significant amount of time in capital markets, all the different facets of kind of the mortgage life cycle. But it's really not about me. It's ultimately about the team. When you really look at the Rocket team and the executives there, they're super impressive, and there's just a ton of talent. And when you take that talent and you combine it with the Cooper talent, I think it's an unstoppable force. I mean, the teams are fantastic. And so for me, it's just an honor to be part of it. I'm really excited about leading it.
So back to Varun, in deals of this size, there are always antitrust considerations. How are you thinking about those antitrust concerns as you attempt to combine two of the biggest servicers in the U.S.?
Yeah, thank you. I think, probably best if I just step back and just talk about regulatory in general. And obviously, when it comes to antitrust, we are working with the industry's best attorneys. We've done a ton of diligence around this, and we don't anticipate any issues when it comes to things like HSR, et cetera. But I think when you just step back and just look at regulatory in general, obviously, I would say that we wouldn't pursue a deal like this unless we were confident in our ability to get it done and to complete it. And when you think about, FHFA, Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie, both companies have very deep relationships and have been, kind of the longtime gold standard in how you run your business. And so, the good news is we have great relationships. We have teams that are focused on this day over day. And we feel very confident that we're addressing things like concentration risk or safety and soundness. Because the reality is it's a huge market. In fact, 85% of the market is sort of still open and very fragmented. And so we're working closely with the regulators, to make sure everyone feels good. We're leveraging a lot of the strengths that we have and the relationships that we have. We're following a very rigorous process. And again, as I said, I don't think we wouldn't be pursuing it if we didn't feel confident.
So as you think about integration of both of these incredible companies, I'm interested in how you think about this revolution in rocket marketing and this really amazing brand equity that you've built in the Rocket brand. But you're also acquiring businesses that have built brand equity of their own, Mr. Cooper and Redfin. How do you think about these three different brands? Are they brands that continue to exist under the Rocket umbrella? Does everything become Rocket? Like, how are you thinking about that, Varun?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that that's a work in progress, and we're working through all of the details. But I think it's a good problem to have. It's just how do you create a better experience for consumers and allow brands to be in service to that. And so I think at the end of the day for us, we believe in building a more integrated experience, right? And that means meeting clients where they are. It means removing friction. Today that's very broken, right? If you think about search, the real estate experience, financing, title, closing, escrow, servicing, it's very expensive. It's very manual. It's very inefficient. And at the same time, each of these companies have built significant presence with their clients. And so what we want to do is leverage the strengths of each of these areas and bring them together to create more strength. I'll give you an example. Redfin is an incredibly powerful search portal. We plan to leverage that to the fullest ability possible. They have, I think, the best mobile app product in the world. It's performant, it's well designed, it's beautiful, it's high engagement, and that doesn't happen, via accident, right? And so I think over time, the brands may come closer together, but what we care about the most is just like meeting clients where they are and then removing friction. And so what that really looks like is obviously, I think the Redfin brand would continue to maintain to some degree. It's the premier brand for search. It's an amazing consumer brand that is very loved. And there's also elements of the Rocket digital experience that are very loved as well. And so we think there's an opportunity to bring the Mr. Cooper brand closer to Rocket while continuing to strengthen the Redfin brand. But at the end of the day, I think that, this is an argument that will be solved with data and evidence. It's not about emotion. It's about doing the right thing for the consumer and creating the best possible experience. And the brand strategy will be obviously in service to that as well. So we've got some work to do there, but we think this is a great opportunity for us to just strengthen the combined value proposition of the integrated, brand experience. And, we don't want to be sort of a branded house. We want to be a house of brands. And I think that will translate into an experience strategy that leverages the best of what we have.
And then you have now three incredible technology teams, right? Like Rocket is well known for building incredible tech. Redfin, it was well known for building incredible tech. Same with Mr. Cooper. How are you thinking about integrating those three different amazing technology teams into one powerhouse technology team?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I'm super excited about, right? And I think there's a couple things. I think, we obviously know that there are places where each of the technology teams are in particular strong. I'll use portal technology and search engine technology as being an example for Redfin and SEO. We know that Mr. Cooper has built an industrial grade servicing technology stack as well. We know Rocket has, an incredible loan origination platform. There's also things that are kind of shared across each technology platform, like a holistic view of the consumer, something that allows for a better management of data and documents, cybersecurity, compliance, regulatory, right? And so I think that this is an exercise in us really stitching together the best of each of these capabilities to build an integrated platform. But the nice thing about this is, it used to be that these like major tech migrations were multi-year and required, a lot of, working with structured, unstructured data, legacy technology. The barrier to integration and the barrier to bringing things together is getting lower and lower. And that's because of the benefits that AI provides. It's because of the benefits that, algorithmic intelligence provide, that experimentation provide. And so I expect that while it may seem daunting to sort of integrate three large technology companies and systems, they are technology companies and they're run by smart technology engineers and leaders that understand how to do this stuff and have had experience doing it. And so the principle is we're going to leverage the best of what we have, and where we have different choices, we're going to pick sort of the area where we think would be the strongest and adapt that. But largely speaking, we're going to leverage the unique capabilities that each company brings to the table, and that translates into a technology and I would say an AI strategy as well. There's a lot of value in certain things being shared that can be written once and run everywhere. There's also some value in certain stacks being promoted because they serve a very specific purpose that should then be scaled across the rest of the company, the rest of the company. So, I think we'll be thoughtful, we'll be deliberate and planful about it. A lot of those conversations are happening now.
Let's talk more about artificial intelligence, because both of your companies have really been on the forefront of building technology, including AI, to better originate from your servicing book. How are you both thinking about extending that technology into the discovery experience, which you're getting better at through the Redfin acquisition, and into the origination experience, which I assume has a lot of areas that could be improved with the use of AI?
I think part of it just comes down to just being very deliberate about what your core goals and priorities are. And, I'll give you an example. We want to increase traffic in the top of the funnel, and we want to drive mortgage attached conversion. We want the conversion funnel to optimize our leads, both in terms of quality and volume, and then we want to generate conversion. In servicing, we want to generate long-term value and net promoters and retention, and then we want to generate recapture. And so the starting point for me is really understanding what are the core metrics that drive your flywheel, and then underneath that, making sure that you have the right technology to generate insights, experiments, actions, and engagement. And so we would take a framework like that, we would apply it to our organizational structure, we would make sure that our leaders are accountable for those goals, and we'd make sure that the technology teams are essentially building roadmaps that provide increased traffic generation, increased lead quality, increased product-specific conversion. And so to give you a specific example in Rocket Mortgage, we have a technology called Navigator. And what Navigator does is it analyzes hundreds and thousands of calls at a semantic level to understand, what drives conversion, what are the detractors, how do we pair up the right loan officers with the right consumers, how do things like time of day, location, geography, sentiment, client life events and situations pair up together. And so that technology is super cool because our non-technologist oriented mortgage bankers, marketing professionals can actually query this database and build apps without writing a single line of code that say, hey, identify when these three trends happen and are a 3-point increment detractor in conversion, and then also identify the 3 best interventions that I can leverage to coach my team member. And this is incredible use of AI technology to apply to a metric like, for example, increasing conversion. And so you can take that basically, turning everything into an AI-driven system, using prompt engineering and agentic AI to then create a different way of attacking the problem, and then being able to do that across Redfin and the home search and portal experience, across the entire financing journey, including title and close, and across the servicing business, as well as recapture. That's what gets me super excited.
Yeah, I would say like an example in the servicing business is our Agent IQ solution. And they're similar to what Varun said. We've taken millions and millions of calls, analyzed those calls. And so when a client or customer calls in now, our agents can assist them immediately. They know immediately where to go to find the answer. If it's an escrow topic, if it's a insurance topic, whatever it is, our customer service agents now have tools at their disposal that allow them to solve that problem immediately for that customer. And it's just a much better experience, and the call is handled in a time frame that works really well for the customer.
It's super interesting. Some executives at HousingWire have started. I had never heard this expression before, but they've started vibe coding with the use of AI, and Varun, kind of like what you said, starting to build apps that get after some of the data that we've got internally, or build little businesses around some data sets. Is that kind of what you're enabling some of your business leaders to do with your technology?
Absolutely. I think that we will continue to stack example after example of where this is starting to happen, and what it does is it just creates scale, right? It just allows everyone that's kind of part of the journey of homeownership to also play a role in innovation, right, and modernization and advancement. And I do love the vibe coding vibe. And Jay and I were going to do a little vibe coding later today. We'll see how that goes. But you're exactly right? I mean, when you're working with complex systems, at the end of the day, home ownership is about a deterministic exchange of financial data and information and money for an outcome. And it's a very complicated emotional decision. And if we can figure out how to allow human beings to have an enhanced connection because of it, and allow computers and technology to automate the mundane and to simplify the complex, I think we get to just a better state. And the reason that Jay, Glenn, myself wanted to join forces is because we just thought we could enable that better state faster. And we also felt like, the ecosystem just feels so combative in housing. Everyone is competing with everyone else. Can we be champions for more of an ecosystem approach? Can we be champions for more partnership? Can we create more inclusivity? And then also, obviously, can we create more value, for the client, because they matter the most at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an emotional process, like you said. And wow, it's hard when you have all these emotions, and then also the process kind of sucks. Like it's really difficult. Yep. It's hard to work through. So it's sort of a double whammy, especially for a first-time home buyer. So I'm glad to hear about this ecosystem approach and bringing all these different facets of home ownership together. Jay, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about servicing. Like I said before, you've built this incredible servicing business at Mr. Cooper, and now that you're combining with Rocket, I think the stat is you're going to be touching or servicing 1 out of every 6 mortgages in the U.S., which is just an incredible statistic if you think about it. Are you still bullish on acquiring even more and maybe getting to 1 out of every 4 mortgages that you're servicing? How are you thinking about continued growth of this massive servicing book?
Well, I think, first we're just focused on the integration, right? At the end of the day, we got to combine the companies. And so, I think that's going to be the first priority. But yeah, look, I think we can grow the servicing platform. And the great thing about, combining these companies is we're multifaceted, right? We're multi-channeled. We're, in the broker channel, in the correspondent channel, we're in the retail channels, NCA, et cetera. So it just gives us a lot of the ability to really grow organically as well as inorganically. And so, yeah, I think and it's such a fragmented market, right? Even at those numbers, it's still a fragmented market, and we feel like there's a lot of room for growth from here. So yeah, we'll definitely be active participants.
Are you guys going to let your M&A teams rest and integrate for a little bit, or are you already thinking about that next deal?
No, I think we're going to let them. Varun can jump in, but we're going to let them rest, and we're really focused on integration.
Yeah, we've got plenty of work to do and to make this a success. So it is our dogmatic focus, top priority across all companies is integration.
This has been an amazing conversation. I want to end with Rocket Pro because there was a lot of chatter about when these deals came out about whether it's good for Rocket Pros, broker partners, bad for Rocket Pros, broker partners, indifferent. And I would just love to get the perspective from both of you on how you see the acquisitions of Redfin and Mr. Cooper benefiting Rocket Pros, broker partners. And Jay, I'll start with you.
Yeah, look, I think we spent some time. I think it's great for the brokers, right? They're such an important, part of the ecosystem, and we want to find more ways to serve them. And I think, with the servicing platform, we have the ability to retain servicing and then provide leads back to the brokers, promote their system as well. And so I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the brokers, and it's a really important channel, and we plan to grow it. And obviously the subservicing business is a big part of our business as well. And, there we'll continue to maintain those clients and grow that business. And we're obviously going to honor the non-solicit provisions and all those, agreements. But I think we're starting to brainstorm about ways to really, ignite the broker channel even more than we are today.
Varun, I'd love your perspective on this as well. I've had the opportunity and the pleasure of sitting down with Dan Sigorka and other members of that Rocket Pro leadership team. It's a really interesting and very skilled group. And it seems like Rocket wants to really push in and compete in wholesale in 2025. How do you see these deals fitting into that picture?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're directly in service to that strategy, plain and simple. I think at the end of the day, this is going to be great for brokers, as Jay said. And I'll just give you a couple of the key reasons, just doubling down. One is, it's a much larger ecosystem and distribution, right? More clients equals more business, whether that's the 62 million, visitors that come to the combination of Rocket Mortgage and Redfin, or the 10 million servicing clients. More clients equals more business. And we want to meet our clients where they are. And when a client needs a broker, we want to be there to create that connection and to make that business happen. So brokers are vital to our strategy. And, as you mentioned, we've made some significant changes in leadership and investment in service to that. The two other things that I'd also highlight is that, we care about expanding the capability of our platform to our brokers. The Rocket Logic platform, our data processing capabilities, our servicing capabilities, everything that we're building is as in service to brokers as it is to our loan officers. And we think of them as a connected part of our ecosystem for forever, and I want to be very clear that is a vital part of our growth strategy. And what's great about that, when you think about Mr. Cooper in particular, is you think about capabilities like servicing. You think about a broker's name on the mortgage statement, right? You think about new capabilities that enhance what a broker needs to do in order to grow and thrive and be successful. And then I think the last thing is that philosophically, we believe in the power of choice. We think choice is one of the biggest sort of assets and weapons that a broker has to be able to deliver top tier service and a great experience for consumers. And so we stand for choice. We stand for technology evolution and capability expansion for brokers. We stand for creating a larger ecosystem and more distribution. I think it's difficult to argue that we're not delivering against that, and I think if you include things like the Arrive platform that we have just recently announced through improvements that we're making in the dashboard to just how these deals are going to create business. We are very committed to this channel, and we want to hear how we can do even better.
I'll give you one example, Diego. We have a subservicing client that's a distributed retail platform, but we've been able and we're subservicing those loans, been able to Varun's point, put the loan officer on the statement. So when that customer gets the statement, they know who their loan officer is. And we've been able to deploy some toolkits that we use for retention with those retail loan officers. And so we're really actually helping them retain their clients in a more powerful way than they have previously. So I think that can be applied to the broker channel as well and can really significantly improve retention for the broker community.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And Varun, you mentioned the Arrive platform. You recently struck a deal with leadership at that company to get Rocket included on that platform, on that broker LOS platform for the first time in years. So it seems like you're putting your money where your mouth is when it comes to choice.
Absolutely. As I said, I mean, it is something that we think is a fundamental benefit and a power that brokers need to be empowered with. And so this is just simply in service to that. Well,
gentlemen, this has been an incredible conversation, and we're going to get a chance to talk to you again in about a month when the two of you will be joined by Glenn Kelman of Redfin on stage at the gathering. Really looking forward to publishing this conversation, and then also to seeing that kind of three-way panel at the gathering. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Diego.
Thank you, Diego. Good to spend time together.
Appreciate you.